Okay, you can ride with Caroline. You can ride with Caroline.
If a drug dealer, right, slips fentanyl in drugs he's selling,
they're doing the same thing to crack right now. They're putting fentanyl in crack. They're putting it in crack.
You know what? Let's do a poll. Let's see what the audience think. You know, matter of fact, if you're in the audience right now, hit that chat feature at the bottom right corner, right?
Is it poisoning or is it overdose?
Poisoning or is this an overdose? If you're in the audience, hit that chat feature at the bottom right.
First time I've heard this poisoning thing. It is an overdose.
Just like you are 99.9% of the time, the audience will prove you wrong. You know why? Because Jonathan Ben,
if you're on stage and you think this is a poisoning, raise your hand.
Hold on, I'm going to bring it home for you, Jonathan. If your daughter smoked marijuana and that's the only drug she did, and she smoked, whether it's a drug or not, that's not the issue. If your daughter smoked pot, right? If you had a daughter or son and they smoked pot, and that's all they did was smoke a little weed, right? And then all of a sudden you walked into their bedroom, they were hitting the bowl, and they were there, and they stopped breathing, right? Would you call that poisoning?
No, it's an overdose. It's an overdose.
They didn't know there was fentanyl in the weed, Jonathan.
You can't overdose on weed. Sorry.
Okay.
No, if it has fentanyl in it, you can. Come on, guys. Be honest.
First of all, if it's weed, it's got to be laced. Okay, it's got to be laced.
So that's poisoning, Jonathan. They're poisoning the drugs that wouldn't.
Not all weed is laced. And
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Mo, don't do that. I didn't.
No. I didn't say. I was saying that to Jonathan. I think you have a point there. If weed was laced with a substance that a person did not know about, that is a form of poison.
A month ago,
we have to call it what it is. How are you going to call it overdose, man?
You know what I find ridiculously funny here? All right, because there are millions of I've seen it. Okay, I actually had a sister that got addicted to crack. Okay, and she never recovered. Okay, and she died last year.
I'm so sorry.
But what I'm saying?
Sorry, Jonathan.
It is what it is. It's life, you know, and and she's in a better place now. But what I will say is this, okay? I never once said she knew what she's doing, but I never once, and I've seen there's many stories like that, okay, when I was growing up, because crack came out in the 80s, okay? And crack dealers had everything. They had the cars, they had all that other stuff, and I aspired to be one, actually, all right? Because that was what I knew. That's what was glamorized. Never once did we consider it poisoning, okay? We've seen the drug dealers, they were arrested and incarcerated, and the users, they were arrested and they were incarcerated.
Yeah, but Jonathan, if you sold crack to a pregnant woman,
there's a very different approach that we're taking, okay, with this opioid addiction crisis than we did with that crack addiction, crack crisis. And then if you guys are denying that, okay, and that's why I'm pushing back, because here's the deal, okay, we can, and I get it, they're victims, okay, they are these people are victims, the ones that are dying, the ones that are overdosing, the ones that you're finding in the park and you're hitting them with the Narcan and saving them, they are victims, okay, and they're addicts. Addiction is an illness, it's a sickness, okay, but what I will say is this right here. The same thing held true back then is all I'm trying to say. So if we're going to, and everyone that was involved in that crack era, whether they were users, okay, they were predators. I'm gonna tell you something. And the addiction for for opioid is a physical addiction. All right, and people have to have that, and people are doing a lot more to get these opioids than those crack addicts did. And a lot of those crack addicts, they preyed on one another. And that's where the term Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden went out and called all these people super predators and all. That was over the crack addiction. But when you look at what happened in opioid, it's much more widespread. And no one to call these people super predators.
Let me add one point.
They're not being referred to that. But go ahead.
Let me add one point here just to say this in this little petty argument about overdose versus poisoning. When you're out in the
it's not petty.
When you're out in the street, let me just get a point off here and then let's see what you think. Because when you're out,
it's not petty.
Let me tell you,
Dan, hang on, buddy. Hang on. Let Eric speak.
Listen, I'm grown. I can hold the microphone, Storm. I got it, bro. When you're out in the street trying to put something in your arm or up your nose, you're a drug addict. And when the drug that you're seeking has something cut in it and you die from it, That's called an overdose, brother. Whether you know it's in there or not, you're out there slamming something into your body that you damn straight are not competent enough to know it shouldn't be happening. So what is the petty argument between overdose?
We've always called it overdose. Always. But that's fine.
Hey, when's the last time we heard of an alcohol overdose?
Plenty of times. You're just not paying attention.
All
plenty of
times. You know all that bullshit you always bring with this Captain Cul-de-sac freaking.
I'm serious. I've never heard of an alcohol overdose.
Let's stay on point because alcohol is not the same thing as an opioid. Alcohol is not. It's alcohol poisoning, but it's not the same as an opioid. So let's just. I mean, this is petty.
Oh my God! You know what? At least we have President Trump here, Jonathan.
Alex, jump in, Alex.
Yeah, so I got a question. You guys are talking about drugs. Why hasn't Hunter Biden been arrested yet? That's a question for Jonathan. You know what? The laptop, there's a scale. He's measuring narcotics. It's all video, pictures. You know, all that inculpatory evidence is there. Why isn't he charged?
Hunter Biden, okay, folks, is a piece of shit, okay? And he's probably done enough to go to prison, okay, or go to jail. All right? And he's most likely going to be indicted, all right? So that's the difference here, folks, okay? You got to call a piece of shit when they show themselves to be who they are, whether they're on the side that you root for or the side that the others root for. A piece of shit is a piece of shit. Excuse my language.
So, Eric, I have a question for you. Just to come back, hold on, guys. Just to push back a little bit, Eric. Respectfully, I'm not trying to be asshole. All right, I'm trying to be very respectful right now, and I'm going to calm down and say this. If I said this before, and I still don't understand how people don't get it. If a weed dealer who also sells coke, who also sells heroin, I've written a book about this, by the way, puts fentanyl in the weed so that the people who smoke weed will then become addicted to fentanyl as well and start buying bundles of heroin from them every day, which is mostly fentanyl now. You don't think that the weed dealer and the coke dealer and the heroin dealer, he didn't poison the weed?
You know what, Daniel?
He didn't
know what, Daniel?
Sometimes they get it.
Jay Bing, I think Daniel's got a point. Daniel, that's a fast follow for me, man, because you know what? If I'm out there and I can remember going all the way back how freaking hell and high water to get an eighth of weed, I'll just say it straight, man. We broke our asses for 3 days and a weekend in high school trying to find some fucking weed, end up with some shitty ass brown weed cut with some nonsense. Right back then, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about any of these drugs. We were just trying to get high, just trying to get a little weed and not drink alcohol because I didn't like alcohol. It made me sick. I played football, baseball, played sports, never smoked a cigarette until after high school. So I'm feeling you on that one right there. And I would say that's a good delineation to say, hey, you poisoned me, man, because you know damn good and well that kid just wanted to smoke a joint and you put some other shit in there. You did poison that kid. And Daniel,
okay, so Eric, now listen to this.
I got you on that.
2 weeks ago, thank you, brother. 2 weeks ago, we
got to move the mic around
Jonathan, real quick. 2 weeks ago, where I live, in the park in the middle of the city, 2 people dropped dead within like 8 hours of each other, smoking a blunt in the park. It was laced with fentanyl, and they're now dead.
And it was laced. It was laced, guys. You know when your weed's laced.
No, you don't. You can't
let me just say this right here. I'm telling you something, guys. I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. Okay, it's probably the second dangerous city in the state after Camden. It's probably like the seventh or eighth dangerous in the country. Okay, so let me just say this right here. And I've read about many people dying from drugs. Never, and the drugs that was laced and that we knew was laced. Never once did they say it was a drug poisoning. They always refer to it as a drug overdose. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give it that kind of grace, okay? Because it's never been given that kind of grace now because the avatar is different, okay? We're not going to change up the terminology.
Hey, Jonathan, I'm late. Tell me why it matters, Jonathan. Tell me why it matters. I'm late to this room.
Jonathan, this has never been dealt with before. We have never experienced where regular potheads.
Yeah, we have. We've dealt with it with the crack epidemic. Okay?
No, let me finish, Jonathan. You're right. And what's funny about that is all the white people whose kids are dying from fentanyl weren't sticking up for the black people when they were being taken down by crack epidemic. So
that was brought on to us by our own
government. But my point is, you're right. But also the people, because so listen, my point is this though: if it is poison because this. If somebody smokes a little weed once in a while, how many times do I have to say this, bro? And somebody puts poison, fentanyl, that you could touch something the size of the pinhead of a needle and die in their fucking weed. How have they not been poisoned? That's not an overdose. You can't die from.
Yeah, why does it matter? What's the differentiation you're trying to say, John?
We're going to agree to disagree. We're going to agree to disagree. Why? Because here's the thing. I'm going to tell you this right here. You know, those people. There's some people that got hooked on crack. There are some people that there were women. Okay, that guys wanted to take advantage of. Okay, that did lace up their marijuana with cocaine. There were women that tried it, just try it. You know, whatever. And they got addicted. Okay, they were all victims. They all were users, and if they died of an overdose. Okay, just because the avatar is different, we're not going to change up the terminology to make it a lot neater and cleaner. Okay, and take away from the ultimate. Guess what? They didn't. I'm not saying it's their fault, but hey, if you're using, that's the risk you take.
You're right, bro. And let's zoom out real quick, guys, because whether it's Andrew Tate and people arguing over whether the girls did it willingly or not, or whether it's people doing drugs, let's zoom out. Let's be better parents. Let's be better people. Let's not do drugs at all, even if it's smoking weed. It clouds your fucking mind. Let's go back to God. Let's love each other. This is the bigger issue, man. It's not whether or not the girls wanted to do this in the room with the camera or not. It's that this is not something that Jonathan Bing would want his daughter to do. We could all admit that.
I think that's so true. Like you just reach a point where the problems that you're dealing with could have been avoided if you just avoided everything altogether. And it's
bad choices.
Well, Caroline, I think there's also a matter of supply and demand.
Correct.
Here too.
And that was my
as long as people demand it, there's going to be a supply. So I'm curious if Donald Trump was in charge, and I know Josh, I want to hear your thoughts on this. If Trump was in charge, would we be flowing more or less drugs through the border? Because
excuse me, there would be a lot less. And I just drank a lot of Diet Coke, so my voice is a little phlegmy right now. But
shout out to the Diet Coke, man. Let's talk about it.
By the way, Jonathan, I got to say, I love the fact that you're supporting my campaign. That's a beautiful, beautiful photo in the top link. Okay, it really looks fantastic on you. So thank you very much for your support.
Viral.
We're going to shut down the border. We're going to shut down the border, and once and for all, it's very sad what's happened with the drugs. It's not just fentanyl, okay? It's very sad, and we're going to make sure that this doesn't happen anymore when I get back into office. Believe me. Believe me.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, can I jump in real quick?
All right. Hey, Charlie, I want Charlie to jump in. Charlie, I haven't heard from you, Charlie, because we're going to start rotating these out. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. Appreciate all you guys. This is a great conversation. And Jonathan, it was really, really telling. I respect your perspective on how the terms, I'm going to zoom out in a second.
Nothing Jonathan Bing says should be respected. My opinion.
You stop that right now. No.
Dude, it's my first time on the floor, man. You got to let me acquiesce here. But okay, so I appreciate that. Now, Jonathan, there's a branding difference. I mean, it's a little reductive to say branding, but between poisoning and overdose. So you can overdose, and I worked in the supplement industry, natural health, know this for a little while. You can overdose on vitamin D. We make vitamin D in our bodies, but you can have toxic amounts in your body. And
wow, I got cursed out on the stage the other day for saying that.
It's legit. It's hard to do. It's hard to do. Same thing with fat soluble vitamins in general can build up to a toxic level. So you can have toxic levels of carbon dioxide in your, in your bloodstream. So the terminology, first of all, I understand what you're doing with it as far as you don't want to lessen. When you say poison, it can, I think this is a bit semantic, but it can lessen the severity of the problem. And I think that was a point you're trying to make. Now, it'd be interesting if there's a legal standpoint, like if court cases were argued. I have no idea about that. But so I get that. But yeah, the point is, I mean, things can be alcohol is toxic to your body at any level. And there's certain levels where it overloads your detox capacity where you get what we call alcohol poisoning, but it is never not toxic. It's always poison in your body. The biochemistry disagrees with alcohol, period. It's not a natural thing that goes with our biochemistry. At any rate, the one thing I also want to, I'm going to throw this monkey wrench in here. Now, I'm conservative, but I like to stir the pot a little bit because I like to hear what happens when Nelson gets riled up. But when you were talking earlier about the whole debate about trust the government, this and that, and specifically in regards to Fauci, the vaccine, I mean, we kind of run around these topics in this room, which I love, by the way. So the Roman Emperor Cincinnatus, there's that legend, I think most of us here are familiar with it, where he took dictatorial powers in a time of crisis in the Roman Empire, like 400 or 500 BC, and he became a hero when he became the only dictator to ever give it back to the people. And we all sort of agree, I think, even Jonathan, that there are problems when you have a seizure of power. Now, I work in crypto now, and there's a religion of decentralization right now. In a lot of spaces, we're going towards decentralization. This marching orders. It really is religious. People get fanatical about decentralization. The issue is there's always a fluctuation. There's a dichotomy between centralization, which is way more efficient, and then decentralization, which is way more stable, more representative, all these different things. But it's also incredibly inefficient. In a time of crisis, it is better. This is proven on so many different areas of life. It's so much more efficient to have a centralized decision-making body or individual. The issue is, now we can debate the reasoning behind, how good this quote unquote emperor entity, whether it's the FDA, CDC, or whatever, whether they're making good decisions. That can be debated, and I think it should be debated. But the dynamic, and Jonathan, you were actually referring to this, if there was Ebola, blah blah blah. Well, yeah, in a time of crisis, the fastest way to get things done is when you have a centralized philosophy. If we all act according to one thing, that is efficient, that is effective. The problem is when you don't have Cincinnatus coming in and saying okay, great, we solved that. Now here you go, back to the people. Let's do a debrief. Let's figure out where we messed up, what we did right. We don't have that. That's the problem. Sorry,
Charlie, that was Jonathan Bing, by the way. Just say it for the record. And that's the problem.
Thank you, Charlie.
That really is the problem with the left.
Oh,
no, the problem with the left is they never sit back and listen to the people. That's the problem, right? That's showing on his stage right now, right? Charlie was dropping some heavy nuggets, heavy information, and individuals like Jonathan Bing that cannot comprehend it, they just go out and act stupid, foolish. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Debate the News, man. Let's talk about it.
I think we need to go back to the title, and our conservative values, American values, are anti-USA. I think we need to define what American values are first before we can label them as conservative or liberal. Don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And let me just say this to you guys to bring something back a little bit. I want to be humble because maybe I can help somebody in this room, right? I'm 3 years sober from
congratulations, bro.
From opiate addiction.
Amen.
It takes a lot. Thank you. So it takes a lot for me to say this, right? Brief recap. I was in a motorcycle accident in 2014. Flew 80 feet through the air. It was not my fault. I was sober. The girl that was on the bike with me died 2 weeks later.
Fuck. Sorry.
I broke my pelvis. Yeah, thank you, guys. I didn't know her. It was one of those begging me for a ride type deals, and it was just her time to go, I guess. But so I broke my pelvis. They sent me out of the hospital with a big bottle of Percocets, and which I filled the script immediately, and I took about 10 times more than they told me to, like an idiot, right? So my choice was involved in that. But then once you're hooked on opiates, you really don't want to be anymore. You can't shit. Life is horrible. It's not fun. So I just want to say this to give some people courage. I'm in the minority of folks, and God must have a purpose for my life, guys, because I survived this. I not only survived the motorcycle accident, I didn't die, but I also survived being addicted to this fentanyl that we're all talking about. So I think the bigger issue is to try to raise our kids, not just to be questioning fools and the government is bad, but be in our kids' lives a little bit more tomorrow than we were today. And I'm pledging to do that with my 5-year-old son and with your kids too, guys. I want to get more involved locally. And I wrote this book. This is not a plug either, but I wrote a book. I've never written a book in my life. It's not published. It's just in my notes in my phone, 10 chapters. Because why? I think that education and communication is the key to any problem. So I posted in the Nest if anybody could help me. I don't want to make money from this book. I swear to God, I have money. I don't want to make a dime, but I want to educate people about what I know about the rehabs and the left. The left has complete control of the drug recovery business in the United States. There's something where the right is failing. We should get more involved and join together and try to help people, guys. I love you all. Sorry for hogging the mic today. Thank you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I unknown. Let's go. Let's rock out. I unknown going twice.
Yeah, I wanted to bring the topic to something that somebody said about what happened in 2020 when the virus was starting. One of the things that I think influenced some of the decision making, I remember, had to do with overcrowding of hospitals. When it got to a point, people that really, really needed access to the hospitals were not able to get access because of COVID. So some of these decisions, when we are trying to vert them, when we are trying to think about why the decisions were made, I hope we put the context of what was happening back in 2020 that caused some of those to happen. I mean, if hindsight is always very clear. I mean, but in the midst of what was happening when you had crematoriums in New York were so backlogged. Morgues were so full. People were dying. I mean, everybody was panicked, really, right? We saw, what was happening in Spain, Italy, the UK. I mean, it was as if the whole world was coming to an end. I mean, so when we are talking about some of these decisions that were made back then, I hope the context of what was happening to the whole world back then is factored in how we analyze. If we really want to understand the mistakes that were made, we have to be really truthful to ourselves about what was actually happening. Some people said that. I mean, some of the folks on the panel said that. Nobody was standing up to the government. No, that's not true. If you remember back then, there were a whole lot of churches that were refusing to close up. I mean, a lot of pastors died, conservative pastors that thought that they knew better than what Fauci and the rest were saying. They died. I mean, we can go back and look at what the actual history is. If we try to rewrite it, then we will always repeat the same mistakes. There were people that stood up against Fauci, and they're no longer with us today. So let's not pretend as if, today we are the heroes. The debate is a lot more complicated than we are making it to be. It's very sad to see the number of people that we lost. And let's hope that this never comes back again. But we need to be very truthful to what the history is, the context that this happening for us to be able
All right.
to
I
not
just
repeat
want
the
to
mistake.
jump in because I think it's important. Well, you're saying some things that are very valid, but it's
I
also
think so too.
important on both sides that we don't sit there and ignore some of the decisions, the abuse of power, the tyranny, the ripping of civil liberties that were taken. I mean, we just can't ignore the, just what went down. I mean, the one thing that sticks with me is that we never regarded natural immunities as being immunities. We just completely disregarded it. Like we just abandoned critical thinking and logical thought in the place of a man-made manufactured vaccine. So I think if we were really to look back, we have to look back with a critical eye and not ignore the fact that there was an abuse of power, there were mistakes made, and we can't let it happen again. So I'm not in the business of dismissing, oh, we were just under stress and morgues were overrun. And, listen, the media was running us pretty ragged. And if you think about it, we had nurses doing dances in the ICU, putting them up on Twitter. So we can also temper a little bit of this media mania with the fact that on Twitter, they were able to go out in the parking lot and do little jigs and entertain all of us. So I think we have to look back in the history of the way we handled the pandemic in 2020 with a critical eye. So moving forward, some of the mistakes that were made, including ignoring natural immunities and not protecting the most vulnerable, which should have been our priority. I think we have to look back and make better decisions going forward, and we can't allow this abuse of power to take place again in regards to not only the politicians, but also how the media misled us. So I appreciate what you have to say,
Barbara,
but I think that is an important point.
There's one point of contention just to add to that, too. I remember, and I think the media wants us to forget, what was deemed an essential business in a time to where we didn't know what was going on. So the only thing that we had was an outlet for media, which only gave us one story, and we weren't allowed to see the other side. So if you look at a church being deemed as non-essential, but you deem a bar, because they serve food and alcohol, as essential, I just don't understand that. The logic to me is something that is very important to understand. Don't ever forget what you were feeling and what you were being fed 2 years ago. But the longer time passes, the more time you have to focus on another distraction. And God knows we've had enough of it. But Barbara, I exemplify your points and amplify those. Very important to understand. And I still have yet to hear the other side say, oh, it was all for our safety. 6 feet was arbitrary. So was a mask. And so don't sit here and tell me that one state has just the same numbers as the other, but one is heavily masked and one is 6 feet and you need a vaccine passport, but the other one doesn't. And you're not seeing a noticeable difference in different infections or even mortality.
And
from that. So
let's not forget that people can go out and stand in protest, but we couldn't mourn at funerals outside our deceased. We made mistakes, and the mistakes need to be recognized. Otherwise, we're condemned to repeat them again. So listen, I understand we were under stress and a lot of things, had to get done, but I also think there was an absolute abuse of power. And I think the people who were in control were those who held the purse strings, and we have to remain very conscious about it. And if truth be told, and you guys, my poor squad here that knows me too well, I'm canceled here on Twitter. I'm permanently suspended because I'm one of those micro influencers that spoke out against the medical mandates, that posted things that said, listen, there's anything with the risk of injury or death should be beholden to the individual. Like, I never believed in the forced vaccine. By the way, I'm vaccinated, so don't come at me like I'm anti-vax. Don't box me in that way. But I bring that up only to remind everyone, your media and the information that you received was heavily thank you, Jonathan Bing. Jonathan Bing and I agree on
No, I'm so sorry. That's my
too
ringtone. That's my text message. I'm so sorry. That's my text message.
Where's the love? But Jonathan's over my rants,
No,
but he's not over me.
No, Bob, I apologize. That's my text message. I didn't meet it out, so
Listen,
my apologies. Go ahead.
I got you. Happy New Year, Jonathan. And it's your
Happy New
birthday
Year.
is over, so no more. It's done.
Exactly.
I agree with all the points made. I just want to also make a point that if you're in a big city, for example, I'm in New York City, and I'm actually in an area around Elmhurst Hospital, and kind of I think what hit President Trump is when he saw the trucks filled with bodies outside of Elmhurst Hospital, because that's such an iconic hospital in the
Absolutely.
area. So, excuse me?
I said absolutely. I'm in New York with you as well.
Yes, yes. So that's why in New York City, it didn't matter. I mean, I think it didn't matter which side you were on. It was scary those first couple of months. We didn't know what the hell was going on. And, but I do agree there was an abuse of power. But I wish there was more information on natural immunity and all of these things. And I think the media just really fucked up with not being consistent in their message. That's the main point. There was a lack of consistency in what was going on. And then particularly, I'm also in an area where there are a lot of people from China and have a lot of relatives from China. And people were hyper as soon as there was a message I remember in January, where there is a very highly communicable disease in China. There were my neighbors were like, something's going to happen, because they knew this was going to be bigger than it was. So, and when Trump was saying, oh, it's not a big deal. Well, not just Trump, everyone was saying, oh, this is not a big deal. All of my neighbors from China, and who had family in China, they're like, hell no. They started putting plastic wrap in their stores, wearing masks immediately. So this is where I am really pissed off that there was an agenda to just save face the entire time, instead of everyone being honest that this was a man-made virus from a Wuhan lab in China, and they should have just said it from the get-go and told everyone to prepare and stopped flights immediately from China. So,
Bologna, what do you think? This is Eric. Just a quick question to your thought there. What do you think if they would have just came out and said, "Hey, this thing got leaked out of if they would have said that? I don't know if we can prove it yet, but if they had said that, then what does anybody think would have been the difference? Would that made any difference if they said it came out of a lab right out of the gate?
I think people would take it more seriously if they said that it came from a lab. But the thing is, people like Fauci would have faced consequences, right? Because didn't he fund this lab? So
not directly.
Absolutely. 1 second. Absolutely, guys. Hey, guys, welcome to Debate the News, man. Today's title, which we're heading back towards right now, are conservative values, American values, are they anti-American? That's what we're speaking about. And let's get there. Let's talk about it, because and I wasn't using your tagline, Nelson, before you come off mic.
Everybody want to talk like me, man. I don't get it.
I was like, let's talk. That sounds like Nelson.
Talk like Nelson. Like, laugh like Nelson.
Yeah, exactly. So let's have this discussion, because hey, when I look at it and I speak about conservative values, okay, I think when most of America is, I guess, doing opposite. I want opposite of what conservatives want. Like I said, I brought up the Roe v. Wade. That was a totally conservative flip. Okay, and most of America, like I said, if you poll most of America, they did poll most of America. Most of America wanted Roe to stay in some form or fashion. Okay, they did not want Roe to go away. All right, but that didn't matter. The conservatives said, "Hey, we know what's best." So, and when you look at the conservatives, let's be honest, guys. Okay, look at Montana. You look at all those little states. New Hampshire's not so conservative, but when you look at those little states, okay, they are, they're in a minority, but yet they're wielding so much more say so in what happens on our national stage. Each state has 2 senators. Okay, I get it. That's the way our Constitution is. But when you look at it, is that really a fair representation? You have in Montana, where you have 1 senator that's 2 senators that's representing less than 1 million people, okay, in the statewide population, and then you have California, where you have, I don't know, 60, 70 million, whatever people that they have there being represented by 2 senators. It's just a lot. And so, when you look at it, I don't think conservative values represents American values, because American, when you look at it, a lot more Americans, actually lean the other way, and they want different things. And if they were truly American values, they wouldn't have to gerrymander, the districts. They would have to cut the districts up to try to keep control.
Jonathan,
to keep
should we have a
control. One
Republican
second, brother. One second, bro. 1 second. So to keep control of Congress. When you look at it that way, there would be no need to gerrymander the way that is being gerrymandered. So I'm going to throw that out there. I do not believe conservative values represents American values. Now, that's not to say that conservatives are un-American. That's not saying that at all. Okay, so let's be clear. But conservatism, okay, isn't indicative of Americanism. And then I don't go around saying, "Hey, I'm a man," or when I'm at the company, at my company, I don't go around and say, "I'm the boss, I'm the owner." I don't say that. All right, I don't have to say that because people know that the way I carry myself. Okay, so and I say that because now conservatism, conservatives, they call themselves patriots. Are they really true patriots? Because if you're truly a patriot, you wouldn't have to say, "I'm a patriot." It would just exude patriotism.
Jonathan, I have a question.
So that's just me. That's just me right there. I want to put that out there. I'm going to open this up. Some of the people that haven't spoken yet, I want you guys to jump in. I want this to be a free-flowing conversation. Storm, we're going to get you in later on, bro. But I want some of the voices that's on the stage so we can cycle through this and open this conversation up. Right? We have Dr. Kulu, we have Red Pill, we have Frito, we have Alibaba, whatever. We have Jim back on the stage, and so let's open this back up and let's have this discussion.
Jonathan, I have a quick question.
Caroline, go ahead. I really don't want any questions, but go ahead. Let's do it.
I think that the topic is saying, are conservative values American values or anti-USA? I think due to public discourse, everyone in here has a pretty good feeling for what we would consider conservative values. But what are you considering American values? And I know someone had raised this earlier because I think that is the issue. I think that conservatives and liberals perhaps just have a different idea of what American values are. What I hear you describing is whatever the majority decides, whatever the majority opinion, that is American values. And what I hear from conservatives on the conservative side is whatever sticks mostly to the Constitution, those are American values. So I just want to get like some definitions clear so that we're not missing each other when we're having this debate.
Absolutely.
Well, once again, in terms of what my idea of America is, it would not be what Eric's idea or Red Pill's idea of what America is, and that's the thing about I think conservatives by definition don't move very far. Supposedly don't move very far, but I've seen some wild swings and been justified. Someone that's more of a free thinker, that's more liberal, does have the luxury of moving away when times change. Okay, when our Constitution was written, okay, we can't have a strict interpretation of the Constitution because back then our founding fathers never imagined that we would have the technology that we have. Okay, or some of the issues that we're dealing with. It was not unfathomable. I mean, it was unfathomable. They couldn't have imagined, that we be flying airplanes. Okay, they couldn't. Some of the things that we have, right now, the medicine. Someone has open mic. Can somebody close their mic?
James.
Yeah, James, please click your mic closed. If you do, again, I'm have to move you down. So so here's the deal. So my idea, I won't be as arrogant enough to say, hey, this is what Americanism is to me, because it's not about me, and it's fluid. What Americanism is, it's fluid. It truly is fluid. Okay, and I think American values,
I guess
they're fluid. Now there's some core American values, freedom. Okay, freedom, and I don't think you say with the majority. I'm not with the majority, because that's democracy. I'm probably I think the individual right matters as well. Totally. So that's so that when you said that, I just don't want you to put that on me. That I think it's what the majority thinks. That's not what
right,
it is.
And that's why I was asking, because I'm what I was trying to say is like what I hear you saying, and that may be wrong. So I think like maybe a more productive conversation is this is what I think is blank is what I consider an American value. Agree or disagree? Which party do you think associates with that, and debate that out? Does that make sense?
No. Well, yeah, it does make sense for you. And that makes sense. But for us, we're gonna have this debate, and we're gonna make sure that people are able to come in and have the debate in the way that they feel comfortable. And the structure is, once again, do I believe that what the current Republican, the current conservatism movement represents is something that I think is American? No, America's value? No, I don't. Okay, I think that there's a lot of things that's happening, that isn't that. The vaccine. We can play revisionist history, or we can do Monday morning quarterbacking and say, it wasn't needed. Can you guys find out who that is?
I got him.
Yeah, get him off there. Yeah, send him for a swim, please. Thank you. So yeah, I can look at that and say, hey, you know what? The vaccines. When the vaccines came out, man, it was about America first, and I think a lot of conservatives said, no, it's me first. And we were in a crisis, man. And I think what the sad part about that is, I think in the future, should we face something like that, hopefully I'm around for a long time, but that's much more deadly, because we didn't know how deadly this was. If we face something like that in the future, do people die off because they're more concerned about, the government this, the government? Yeah, question the government. But when we're in a health crisis, man, so as Americans, when 9/11 happened, we all put everything aside, and Bush approval rating skyrocketed. I don't know if you guys recall that directly after 9/11, and because as a country we came together. Unfortunately, I think if we had another 9/11 situation, I don't think that we would come together like that. I think that we will be at odds, okay, and finding out who can get the political high ground.
Wake it up.
And that's just how I feel. So I'm going to go off mic, and I'm going to let everyone else jump in on that, and we're going to bring up some speakers.
Red Pill,
if we could be honest here, I think both parties are corrupt. Both parties no longer represent the American citizens or our values. And I think our biggest problem here is term limits. We don't have term limits in Congress. They can just run forever.